reason is much more serious, is that you can take the stock market down 90%. There isn't that much money that resides in the stock market to make that kind of a Great Depression. And what it was, and I can recommend to your readers, go to Herbert Hoover's memoirs. They're free on the internet at his library. Read 1931. It's exactly what began in 2010. And all the historical books, The Great Crash by Galbraith, all of them were socialistic. So they omitted the fact that all governments defaulted. It's been omitted from the history books. All of 1931, you have Europe defaulted, Britain went into a moratorium, came out, South America defaulted, China defaulted. You can go to eBay and buy some of these bonds if you like. They make very nice, attractive things to hang on the wall. But we are back at a sovereign debt crisis, and that's what this is really about. So the bond market's going to crash, and you're going to see the stock markets and private assets rise. So
sure. Well, I mean, Zimbabwe $2 trillion notes are also going to hang on the wall. One's hanging in my office. Are you saying default's the only answer, or it's the answer because it's coming either way? It's
basically, I believe what you're going to end up with is some sort of a new summit, probably after 2017, and they're going to have to do something with the World Monetary System. So another type of, Bretton Woods conference, because everything is just falling apart, and it's not going to be sustainable. You cannot continue to borrow year after year and have no intention of paying back. And what you have to understand is when the gold standard failed in 1971, it altered many things. So all your economic numbers are kind of bogus. If money was fixed, you don't actually have the number of people standing at the docks counting how many Mercedes were coming in from Germany. Instead, they just looked at the amount of money. If you sent more to Germany, then you must have bought more Mercedes. But when you went to a floating exchange rate, the currency can move 20% up, down, and whatever. You can't measure trade by flows of capital anymore.
Obviously, because so much, things have been fixed in certain areas for a long time, but just as a layperson studying it, with LIBOR coming out and the fines being paid in the billions for fixing the currency exchanges and, so much manipulation on the stock market, is the manipulation getting worse, or is it more sophisticated, or in your view, do we just know more about it today?
We just know more about it today. It's always been there. Manipulation that they do has been around throughout all my career. Largely what they did to me was because as a journalist, I was reporting all the manipulations. I didn't say who it was, but I had reams of stacks of tapes of every conversation with trading desks, who was behind what was going on. The court demanded all that be turned over to Alan Cohen. Alan Cohen was the court receiver. All of them were suddenly destroyed in the World Trade Center, and Alan Cohen becomes a board member of Goldman Sachs. So, what do you want me to say? And when he's working for Goldman Sachs, he's still working for the court simultaneously, which is totally a conflict of interest. But they do whatever they need to do. But this stuff has been going on for a long time. They cannot manipulate the trend. They can manipulate markets within the trend, but they can't actually take a bear market and make it a bull market.
And they don't care if things are untenable because they're making so much money because they get to rig the system and make profits and then pass us on all the toxic problems that come along with that. And then you see the war on lemonade stands, the war on underground economies, the war on Amish selling cheese, the war on kids, 11-year-olds being in their own backyards. We see this police state forming, not just here, but in Europe. And even Forbes said, no, they're getting us ready for a cashless society. They don't want us to be able to basically survive during the collapse. They want to make us go under their social engineering. I don't think they're going to reform it. I think they're going to use this crisis to bring themselves into an even greater level of power. Martin Armstrong, what do you think?
Look, absolutely. This is, politics. I've worked with these people, for a long time, and something has changed. I was personal friends with Margaret Thatcher. I mean, these were back then. They were people that actually cared. But one thing about Thatcher, you can agree with her or disagree with her. At least you knew where she stood. And today, you don't know where anybody stands. They just move back and forth and they lie all the time. But so nobody of substance is really willing to step up.
So we've lost a moral compass. We're in la-la land. That sounds like it's just megalomania. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you look at what they're doing with Obama wants basically dictatorial powers over trade. That's it. Congress to surrender everything. I mean, we're living in more of a dictatorship than we are in, and it's not democracy. Democracy means that you should have the right to vote on everything, okay? But we live in a republic, and a republic is basically an oligarchy. So that's the substantial difference, and we're moving more towards a position between oligarchy and dictatorship, practically. It's not just Obama, and if you look carefully and closely, you'll see a lot of the people that are there are the same people under Bush. The underbelly doesn't change, just the heads change. And largely, I'll tell you this, in the 90s, Republicans used to have me go meet people who were going to run for president or wanted to. I flew out, met with the governor of Oklahoma, etc. And it was really me supposed to be vetting them out. And when they would tell them I was there to explain the world economy, but when I got back, what do you think? You think he can handle the job, blah, blah, blah. Then I got a phone call about George Bush Jr. They said, we want you to go down to Texas to meet with Bush. I said, okay, fine. And they said, but this time it's different. I said, what do you mean it's different? They said, no, he's really stupid. And I said, what? I mean, I couldn't believe they even used that word. And I said, why would you make somebody president who is stupid? And they said, well, he's got the name. And then I was actually offered if I would be the chief economist in the White House. And I said, you got to be kidding. I'm uninterested. I got a business I'm running here. To give that up to work for 2 years? I mean, no way. And they said they needed people that were qualified to surround him. Now, you look at Obama, it's the exact same pattern. He doesn't attend more than 60% of his daily briefings.
He's on vacation 5 months out of the year. He plays golf the rest of the time and watches Sports Center.
It's the same thing. The people in the underbelly, once they got the taste of power, as they did under Bush Jr., they wanted another figurehead, and that's Obama.
So, absolutely. In fact, I'm glad you're bringing this up because you're kind of quantifying something I've noticed. It's almost like a dictatorship of the power behind the throne, and the political class is really now shopping for total puppets. Because it's true, used to we had corruption and problems, but overall, folks wanted prosperity, wanted basic freedom, didn't want to wreck the country. Now it's a bunch of crazed political hacks who now give themselves TV shows on CNN, MSNBC, and everywhere. It doesn't matter if they kill the ratings. No one wants to look at them. They don't have any good information, but they're egomaniacs. They're now on air. And it's really scary.
It is. It's a sad state of affairs. And, I mean, even with my movie, it's been, a blockbuster everywhere outside the country. It made the nightly news in Germany. I was handed flowers in Dresden. I mean, it was just amazing. Yet it's not being shown in where? United States. Where's the other country? Switzerland. But it's being considered to be shown in Moscow by the Kremlin and also in China. But so we talk about, North Korea was blocking a film. Well, the United States does the same thing.
Well, they've always had political pundits on the news, but now it's almost all that's there spewing doublespeak. I mean, Gibbs got on MSNBC and admitted he was told to say there was no drone program when it was public for years. And it's like denying that the Atlantic Ocean exists. Speaking of your film, which is a blockbuster around the world, has very, very high ratings, really breaks it all down. Here is The Forecaster, the film about this gentleman, which is now available on Blu-ray and DVD. Here it is.
It starts in August of 1999. Yeltsin's going to run for election in 2000. They get Yeltsin to take $7 billion from the IMF loans. Now they threaten Yeltsin. You're not going to run for election in 2000. Otherwise, all this is going to come out that you stole $7 billion from the IMF.
Сегодня я в последний раз обращаюсь к вам как президент России.
This is how Putin gets in. We all know something is wrong. The reason we have this crisis is because since World War II, they basically borrow year after year.
He didn't want to go to college. His father said, you got to do something. So he enrolled him at RCA Computer Store.
I thought I could create a system that stores the knowledge of century to predict the future.
The entire trading community would scramble to see his signals as soon as they were released.
He predicted the top in the Nikkei index.
Universal Bank of Lebanon says, listen, could you make a model? And the computer says, your country's just going to completely fall apart in 8 days.
Obviously, that prediction was correct.
They realized that the model could forecast the rise or fall of a nation.
They wanted that source code, which is text.
We want the source code. I said, not getting it. Sorry.
The government came in, they shut down everything, seized all the accounts.
I had friends, they said, we'll put up the money in cash tonight.
He's held with the worst of the worst.
He wasn't backing down, and didn't seem like they were either.
And he said to his mom, they want what I've spent my entire life developing, and I'm not giving it to them.
Forecaster. And of course, I tend to do things backwards on radio. I won't plug something's coming up. I'll just cover it right then at that point. Or I will introduce somebody and not get to the meat of how they've been persecuted and basically attacked. We should have Martin Armstrong back on in the future for a whole hour to talk about the film itself and the things he went through. I've seen a replay of this over and over again. And of course, you mentioned 9/11 and then your research and evidence of fraud in the system being destroyed there. Clearly, though, we're moving into a more totalitarian system right now. Smart elites don't want a totalitarian system because they know it tends to destroy them. I think we've got a bunch of reckless people in control now who aren't as smart as they think. We're going to break with the final segment, Martin. When we come back, I want to ask you, do you agree with that statement? What do you say about the world power structure, and where is it going? ArmstrongEconomics.com. Martin Armstrong is our guest, and he sees a big crash coming. We'll get more from him on exactly how he sees that going down and what it could look like. I'm Alex Jones. This is the front lines of the worldwide info war to restore freedom. We've got 213 yay and 203 nay, but we're going to try to break that down and see exactly what's unfolding there. Bound says that's the numbers he's got. I'm confused by that. We're going to assess that. That's a big deal, though. We'll continue to track it. Going back to our guest, Martin Armstrong, Armstrong Economics. Is the elite getting more corrupt? Have they chosen totalitarianism? Or what has changed?
Less, not so much the private elite as it is just those in government. And there is a significant difference. I think the banks have gone simply too far. And the real problem that has unfolded is when Robert Rubin of Goldman Sachs moved to get rid of Glass-Steagall. The reason he wanted to do that was that they make more money trading than they do lending. So whereas before it was more fractional banking, you can see the Fed has created excess reserves. There's over $2.5 trillion sitting there by the banks. They're not lending. What they are doing is they're just trading, and that's where this manipulation of markets and stuff is coming from. Because why would you lend money for 15 years and hope